Met with him once before. He is an aspiring congressman, if you will. His name is Jonathan Lewis, and he is running in the primary to challenge Eliot Engel. Please welcome once again Jonathan Lewis. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's great to be back.
Well, it's great to have you here. Now, you guys were at the convention yesterday, and also I want to thank you for your help in finding some information out about that. We were able to watch it, by the way. It was on the oh God, good grief, Democratic Party website, and they streamed it, so that was excellent. What did you learn yesterday, and how will it affect you going forward?
It was great to be at the New York State Democratic Convention. We have a great party in New York State. We have a great record of accomplishment to run on. The governor has simply done amazing things. It was so powerful and touching and meaningful to be there and to be present when Matilda Cuomo spoke. And I have to say,
so right,
so important to hear her voice. What a classy, wonderful lady, and it set an amazing tone for the day. And what I was particularly impressed by were all the voices that were being heard at the party. I think what's so wonderful about the Democratic Party is we're a forum where many voices can be heard, where we can have honest and open conversations about issues that matter, and that's what was happening at the convention.
And at the end of the day, as it affects someone like yourself who's running for office, all those ideas, sometimes it's tough to coalesce them into a position paper, if you will. Where are you going to take your campaign? What issues are you going to care the most about and then pursue if elected to Congress?
When you think about what the energy that was at the convention yesterday, it was about things like healthcare, education. It was people's concerns about the quality of life for their children and the quality of life that their children will enjoy in the future. There were discussions about the aspirations that people's tomorrow should be filled with hope, not concern. And the Democratic Party, of course, is the party of hope. And so when I reflect on that experience and how it relates to my own campaign, I'm fighting very hard for issues that matter to people's daily lives. I'm fighting very hard for health care for all, for taking on big pharma so people can afford the medicines that keep them alive.
That is huge, as you know, and even with the opioid crisis related to that.
Absolutely, and for equal access to an excellent education. As you know, I'm a former school board trustee in Scarsdale. I'm on the board of Yonkers Partners in Education, working with that school district. Nothing could be more important for the future of our democracy than an educated citizenry and for everybody to have equal access to a great education. And so that's the foundation of my campaign. And I think nothing could be more important than focusing on those positive, forward-looking issues.
When is the primary for this seat?
It's on June 26th.
I just want to be sure we have the date right. So it's a little more than a month from now, and we will have had all the candidates on at least twice. We need to differentiate you. We've covered your background when you were last here. I'd like you to give us a thumbnail now. But what separates you? Why challenge a sitting congressman at this point?
Well, we just talked about what the New York State Democratic Convention was focused on, which was the quality of life for our families and their futures. And I think it's important to note, Bob, that when we think about the quality of life for our families and futures, we find that in our policies on healthcare, on education, on taking on big pharma, on small business. These are issues that Eliot Engel does not focus on. He focuses on foreign policy. He sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee. A very meaningful, large portion of his time is spent on foreign policy, not on education, not on healthcare. Not on fixing our broken democracy. And that's a very important theme for me as well, which is campaign finance reform. It's very important that we ban PAC money and special interest money from our democracy. We've written a citizen's guide to fixing our broken democracy. It can be found on our website.
I would like you to talk a little bit about that, if you would. And,
yes.
Let me remind people who you are. Jonathan Lewis is with us, has a great background, and I'm just saving you some time having to go through that, and has decided to jump into the political fray. He is running in the June primary against Eliot Engel, who is the sitting congressman, and others, and he's with us today in person. Tell us about that item you're talking about.
Yeah, so I'd encourage everybody to go to our website. It's jonathanlewisforcongress.com. We have a tab on a Citizen's Guide to Fixing Our Broken Democracy. We have very detailed position papers on education, on healthcare, on the environment, and actually a very important paper on school safety.
Okay, why don't we do the last one first? I was going to ask for the first section, but
Yes.
talk about school safety. It's in the news, particularly in this town of New Rochelle.
Absolutely. I think the great challenge of our time with school safety is to move the conversation into a new direction. For example, I've worked for about 25 years on national security issues for a group called Business Executives for National Security. I worked on intelligence reform, on homeland security reform. I was part of a task force that presented its conclusions to a blue ribbon panel that included Michael Chertoff, former Secretary of Homeland Security, Joseph Lieberman, etc., and it's been used in congressional testimony. One of our conclusions and one of my proposals on my website for school safety is it needs to be embedded more significantly in our homeland security processes and procedures. Right now, every school district is coming up with its own plan. We have hundreds of school districts around the state, thousands around the country that can't be optimal. So what we want to do is A, have a National Commission on School Safety, define what's safe for urban, suburban, and rural. B, do a gap analysis of which school districts can meet that standard and which can't. C, then look at the funding gap and have the Federal Department of Education and Homeland Security propose how we're going to close that gap, because each child should have equal access to a safe school.
Now, how would you put that forward? As you well know, and by the way, what you speak of talks to the rigor of a man who's been in business and in executive life, and music to
Absolutely,
my ears,
Bob.
at any rate, at 7:43. How do we turn that into legislation or policy?
Well, we have to first we have to get a conversation going about it. Second, we have to have Congress people who are focusing on this as an issue, not foreign affairs as an issue. Thirdly, we need to be using the bully pulpit of the congressperson to organize the community around these issues and to propose and work with the committees within Congress to sponsor this legislation.
Okay, one more thing. Give us the treetops of how we can fix our democracy. Just the treetops of that position paper.
Bob, it's fairly straightforward from my perspective. We need to have a ban on PAC money. We need to have a ban on special interest money. We need federal financing of our federal elections. We need expense caps on how much gets spent on running for federal office. Right now, it's an arms race. It's mutually assured destruction of our democracy. And we need people to embrace that. There's an anti-PAC Congress. Pardon me, there's an anti-PAC caucus in Congress. There's 6 or 7 people who are members of it. Every member of Congress
They ought
should
to be
a member.
Listen, we're running out of time, and I want to give you 40 seconds. Why should they vote for you on primary day?
I'm going to focus on the needs and interests of the people of the 16th District like a laser beam. I'm not going to focus on foreign policy. I'm going to focus on getting equal access to an excellent education, equal access to health care, and fixing our broken democracy. I also want everyone to have opportunity, and that means helping the small businesses in this district get access to capital and support. We want more entrepreneurs, less big businesses.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming in again, Jonathan.
Thank you, Bob.
It was continued good luck in your campaign, and we always appreciate it when you make the effort as you have to come in.
Thank
Be
you,
well, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
All right, take